Good morning. Thanks for coming on a Saturday. See, this is basically not a very simple typography workshop, right? So it is not introduction to typography or something like that. It's a slightly advanced level of typography. So this is basically about um, how to effectively use typography to drive your design, right? So we are going to take a look at several ways where you can use typography as your starting point in a design and then drive the rest of the elements using that typography, right? We are going to also take a look at how to actually study typography as a form rather than the text itself, right? So basically, when you see anything which is written like this, you're going to read it and you're going to ignore it, right? You will definitely read it. You will never appreciate the form or the shape or the contours of these typefaces because you are more inclined to read the content which is written using that typeface. That is always a good approach because that is how normal people will regularly read your design. But if you actually manipulate that, if you have the power to manipulate that and bring the form above the content itself, it can create a lot of amazing compositions. It can bring a lot of personality to your design. So we are going to take a look at that, right? So it is not going to be an introduction to typography workshop. We are not going to talk about a lot of basics of typography, typefaces and all those things. We are going to look at typography from a different perspective, right? So I'm assuming that all of you already know a lot about typography because most of you are my students and we already covered typography in all the batches. So except a couple of let's say new students and all that, everyone will be familiar with what is typography, what are the typography types and things like that. But still, I just put a small presentation here before we get into the actual topic to help you out to understand or maybe to remember what are the things that we already spoke about typography, and we are going to jump into a lot of things. So once again, what we will be discussing in here, we'll talk about the a brief about typography here in this presentation. Then we are going to jump into typography as a form, right? How do you actually observe typography as a visual form? What are the elements that you need to consider there and things like that. Also experiment on different graphic design composition based on typography. We will also be taking a look at typography using mixed media techniques. So rather than just taking typography right from the computer or any software and then using it just like that, how you can actually mix different mediums and then create some really interesting compositions there. So, and we will be working throughout the session. We'll be working on a lot of. I will be showing you a lot of different examples and exercises that you can definitely try out in your next graphic design project, right? Because otherwise, the problem is that your design is soon going to lose its personality. There is nothing that you are adding into the composition, right? Every text, everything is norm. It is definitely going to be a functional design, but the aesthetic appeal of that is going to get, compromised there, definitely. So we're going to take a look at all of those techniques today, and it's going to be a lot of fun things that you can do with typography, and we will be discussing all that today. But before that, before we get into any of the complicated stuff, let's talk about some basics of typography. And see, before talking about typography, again, something that we know about graphic design is that graphic design is communicating an idea using graphical elements or visual elements. And these four things that you see here are the major graphical elements that you will be using to communicate an idea. There is typography, there are shapes, there are colors, and there are images. So you will be combining this, and then you will be creating a work, a solution which communicates an idea. That is basically what is called graphic design. In this, right, typography is often used to write content, right? And these elements in here are used to, build around that content to give more aesthetic appeal and all. That's how everybody works, right? Normally, every graphic designer works like that. Typography is just used to convey the idea straight away. And on all these elements like shapes and colors and images are used to make the design more attractive. But what we are going to look at is what is a different approach when we use typography as an aesthetic element, right? So we will be taking a look at that in the workshop. But before that, again, I will just walk you through what exactly do you mean by typography. So typography is also called type or text in a design. Now, when you say typography, it's the art and technique of arranging text in a design, right? There will be a lot of text in one design, right? How do you actually arrange them in a design? That is called typography. So this particular arrangement, right, involves certain techniques. You have to first select the typeface. You have to select a font inside that. You have to select your size, then adjust the spacing between the letters, adjusting the spaces between the sentences. So there is a whole lot of things that you have to do when you're working on typography in a design, right? Like this. So, but your choices in here, right? Selecting your typefaces and selecting your font and all these things, sizes, spacing, and all those things has an impact when a viewer sees it, right? So if you look at this example, this is something that you might have seen already in my class, right? So when you look at this is the same word, right? If you look at it, it's branding, which is written in here, but it is written in different typefaces. It is written using different fonts. It has different character spacing. It has different, arrangements and all those things. Thickness, everything is different in here in this, but even though it's the same word. But each of this word, right, when you're reading it or when you're looking at it as a visual form, right? So why I put all of this as the same thing is that that word is already out of your mind, right? The branding that is gone. Now all you have to do is to find out the difference between this branding and this branding, and that is in the look of it. How does it look? How does this B look? How does this B differ from this B? And how does these two B's differ from this B, right? So you're going to look at it on an aesthetic view, like how does it look for you? But when you look at it, you can see that the personality of each of these words are different, right? So when you look at this and if, a contemporary brand is coming into your mind, right? Like something like Uber, right? Something which is very common, like, Swiggy or, Airbnb, right? A contemporary people friendly brand will come to your mind because most of the brands are actually using that. But when you look at it, that is not what comes to your mind. You might think of a fashion brand. You might think of a newspaper brand, right? So where basically the personality that they want to actually show is legacy or maybe the history, the lineage that they have. They have a lot of experience in here. But this is when they want to connect quickly to the current audience, like whoever is the current audience, they want to connect to that. Now the same word with more character spacing in between this, right? So you know that this is something not normal. This could be something which actually says that it's super technology stuff or maybe something coming from the future, right? It actually changes it. The same word written in something like this, right? Like a handwriting of a kid. It actually shows, okay, this is something sillier than these brands. It could be something that, is funny, friendly, maybe very, very casual. All of this, right? The personality that it actually conveys to you is different, right? So you can see this being used in brands like this because it is more powerful. It actually gives out trust. We are stronger and you can trust us with this. Then there is the branding stuff, which is right there, like which is very fun, casual, a luxurious, futuristic approach, a contemporary approach, which is very popular that people can get into, and a classic approach, right? Which all of this, you can see that we didn't change the word. So it is not the word that actually creates that personality or emotional response in your mind. It is the way how it looks, right? So now that is the personality, and this is where our session is going to start, right? We are going to come back to this and we are going to take this into a next level. But again, once again, going back to the basics, I was saying earlier about typefaces and fonts, right? So for students who don't understand what is the difference between a typeface and a font, typeface is basically a family of fonts, right? A collection of different fonts like this is called a typeface. So, an individual style inside a family is called a font. So Open Sans Extra Bold is a font, where Open Sans is basically the family, which is a typeface, right? So you will have different variations or different styles inside one family of typeface. And another term that you might actually hear a lot is glyphs. So glyph is basically the individual characters that is in a typeface, right? So if you select a font or, think about somebody who creates a typeface, they will have to create these individual glyphs first, right? How will my capital A look? How will my small a look? All this, they have to design it and they will be creating this. So that is glyphs. Now, again, a quick understanding of what is the anatomy of typography, right? There are so many terms out there that you can, you will connect a typography with, right? So not everything is super important for you to understand right now, but it's good to know certain things. So for example, the lowercase height of a character in any typeface, right? The lowercase height of a character, which is something like the A or the R, right? That is called the X height of a letter, right? So basically imagine typing small letter X with any typeface. That height of the X is called the X height, right? That's very important because when you're typing a sentence case letter, right, there are certain pieces of it, right? See, certain portion of a typeface which will go beyond this X height, right? For example, you can see that the top part of the H is actually going beyond the X height, and you can see the lower part of this P is going below the X height, right? So anything which goes below the X height is called a descender, and anything which goes up is called an ascender, right? And so this is X height, and this is descender, this is ascender. There are so many other terms. So there is a tail that you can see here. This particular structure is called a stem, right? So if there is a space in between a closed letter, that is called a close counter. And if there is space between an open space in a letter, that's called an open counter, right? So there are so many terms like that. You don't have to worry about this right now. I'm just talking about basic, because when you're learning typography, you would have learned all of these stuff. So, and when you're coming to typefaces, there are three main types of typefaces. One is serif, one is sans serif, and script. There are so many other typefaces as well, like display, decorative, and things like that. But we will not look at that right now. Serif typefaces are like this, and sans serif is like this, script is like this. So if you can quickly look at this typefaces, the difference is very simple. So a serif typeface will have the tail that we spoke about earlier, right? These kind of tails. These tails are called serifs. And you can see there is a tail everywhere. And also another thing that you can notice is that the typeface inside each character will have varying weights. So if you look at the E right here, you can see that one of the E is thicker than another portion of the E. So it has varying weights and it has this tails. That is how you identify a serif typeface. Wherever you see it, you look for these two properties and you can identify a serif quickly. Now, when it comes to sans serif, sans means without. So without serif, the first thing is that it will not have any tails, right? It will not have any serifs. And another thing is that it will have uniform weight. So wherever you look at, the weight of the character is going to be the same, right? So that's sans serif. This is easy to identify. And there are script typefaces where the typeface is actually handmade, right? It is handwritten, or it emulates a handwriting, right? Anything which looks decorative to you, it comes under the script typefaces. So these are basically the three types of typefaces that you will be using, or in any scenario. Now, another thing that you need to understand while you are in typography is the font pairing thing. And font pairing is a technique where you combine two different typefaces into one design. This is something which is very essential, because when you're doing a design solution, when you're making a design, graphic design thing, you cannot always do it with one typography, right? You might have to mix two different typefaces to make it look better, maybe create a contrast there. So, but that decision on how to choose these typefaces, right? How do you actually, decide what typeface will go with what, right? That technique is called font pairing. And again, when we learn typography, we have spoke about that. I am going to repeat this particular part in our session later. So I'm just talking about the term right now. This is called font pairing, right? When you combine more than one font in a design, how does it work together is called font pairing. Right. So using typography in a design. So as I told you, this is the most popular use of typography in a design to write textual content, right? You will be using typography only when you have to actually write something and tell them, the user, like register now, or this is the body text, an article or something like that, right? It's a very direct way of communication. You are writing what people needs to read, right? That's one use of typography in a design. The second use of typography is to convey a sublime message. A sublime message is an underlying message, right? So the direct message is always here. But if you want to convey something beyond that, right, on the second reading or something, if you want to convey something, you can use typography effectively. So for instance, I'm just saying, what can we say? Like, take the example of the Baskin Robbins logo, right? Do you remember the Baskin Robbins logo? Anybody?
Yep.
Right. So if you look at the Baskin Robbins logo, you can actually see a 31 there, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can see a 31, a number written there, right? So that is a sublime way of conveying that, okay, we have 31 flavors of ice cream, right? Was it 31? I think it is 31. So,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I think it is 31. I don't remember. Yeah, it is 31, right? You can see that right here, right? So it is 31 flavors of ice cream, but we are basically reading it as BR, but on a sublime level, we are also able to see 31 in that logo, right? So that's one use of typography. But what we are going to talk about, majorly in this session is going to be how to use a typography as a design element itself, right? So when we hear about a design element, an aesthetic design element, we don't actually think about typography. We will think about, okay, I can make it more attractive, but if I use a color, if I can make it more attractive if I use an illustration, I can make it much more attractive if I use a picture. These are the ways that graphic designers usually think, which is completely okay to create a design. But what if we actually consider typography as a visual element, and why can't we use that effectively in your design? So if you look at a lot of experimental designs right now, you can see that out there. It is already there. It's not something new. It is there from a long time. So for example, I think you are all familiar with David Carson right now, right?
Yeah.
So David Carson is a person who treats every element in his design as an aesthetic element, right? So functionality or readability is his second priority. His first priority is that it should aesthetically attract or disturb a viewer, right? They should actually look at it. They should think about it, right? It's like parallel cinema, right? It is not direct. It is not straightforward. It is actually using a completely different approach to reach its audience, which is the same way David Carson designs a solution, right? It is not going to be normal. Most people might not even understand it, but there is a separate fan base for that, right? So that is how we use typography as a design element. We can use the same thing here with a couple of very simple exercises, right? So this is not something that we can, acquire quickly, right? This particular skill of using typography as a visual element, we might have to study this a lot. So study and practice, we have to come up with a lot of exercises. I'm going to show you a lot of exercises, and I'm going to tell you how do I do it, how do I form storm, and then come out with ideas with typography. So, this is just a basic example of a normal design, right? How do you usually design this? So if you're getting a content like this, right? Normally, you will be converting it to like something like this, right? Where you have a bunch of text, you would have created the hierarchy, you would have created all these positioning, would have done the spacing and all that. And this is a very functional design. It actually works pretty well, but we are actually treating typography just to write the content, right? There is no other use of typography here.
Yes, sir.
Right? So this is a normal way of approach, and that's completely okay here. But what we are going to look at is on a different approach. So before we go forward, right, there is one more thing that I want you to understand, which is called visual typography. So visual typography is a technique where you actually combine typography or you modify typography to convey a much bigger idea, right? So for instance, if you look at this, right, it's basically families, but you can actually see a family in here.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Photo box, you can see a camera, you can see A, but at the same time, you can see that attachment icon. Clock, you can see CLOCK, but it is also, you can see a clock as well. Loading, the grill idea, right? Idea itself, plug, so PLU and G, right? And doctor, where you can see a stet right here instead of D and O. Right. This is called visual typography, and this is something that you can definitely start practicing for what we are doing now. This is the first stage of that, where you always try to look for. So when you're doing this, right, you're trying to find out what is the what's the most similar form which looks like an A, right? So whenever you look at any of this, let's say the thought process of this, you're going to look at, okay, typography. So there is, I have to actually put a character A. So what is a form which looks like an A, but it's not an A? So you're going to think about it, and you will say that if I take a staple, thing, like, not the staple thing, what is that called? Paperclip, right? So if I take a paperclip and if I sort of rotate it in this orientation, it might look like an A, and it works, right? This particular exercise, right, to understand form is called form storming. Have you heard about this term?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
you have heard about brainstorming, like all of you know about brainstorming, right?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes.
brainstorming is an idea where you are actually putting out every single thought that comes to your brain into a piece of paper, and you're evaluating what is a good idea, what is a bad idea, and all that. That's called brainstorming. You're thinking about something, and you're writing. But form storming is slightly different, right? You're experimenting with shapes. You're modifying shapes and trying to see what is an idea that you can come with it, right? So instead of writing words, you're drawing, and then you are doing a process called form storming to understand, what actually this remembers. So if I write a D, what can I make that D into? Or if I take an M, right? What are the other forms that I can make out of this M? Or if I write an S, right? What are the other things that I can make out of an S, right? Can I make it into a shoe, right? I'm just thinking, like, or if I take an E, and then can I make it into a moon, right? So you actually think about this and then try to actually do that. That particular process is called form storming. Now, this is just the beginning. Like, if you have to get into the other step, right, you definitely have to start practicing this. There's a lot of practical examples of this. You can see it right there, right? And you can see some clever usages of typography in this, right? So why I said that typography is basically treated like a form or a shape in most of these cases. So if you look at the first logo in here, can you see an 11?
Yes.
So it's the digit 11 here, but you also feel like that's the black keys of piano.
Right.
Now, this two shapes in here, the E and X, it is basically typography, but with their arrangement, with their, they're being close and everything, you can see an arrow in this logo. That is because of that typography arrangement. Now, if you come in here, you can see a smiley, you can see a smiley face in here, but this is actually a G, right, of goodwill. It's the small letter G, but which actually looks like, a happy face. The side of a happy face.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right. Now, Artists United, you can see a pencil. You can also see an A and a U. Baskin Robbins, we already discussed it, B and R, and also a 31. Sony Vaio, there's a very interesting example. You can see, B, A, I, and O. But there is another thing. This is the signal, or this is the symbol which represent analog signals, right? And this is digital signals,
Yes.
1 and 0, right? So 1 and 0 is for digital. This is for analog waves. So analog plus digital, that is their concept. So, but we can also read it as VAIO, right?
Nice
So some
question,
beautiful examples of visual typography in here. Now, some of the books that if you want to understand about typography much better, you can actually check all of this. Thinking with Type, just my type, the elements of typographic styles, and some really interesting typefaces which can be used for these kind of activities are mentioned here as well. I will share this PPT later, so you will get an access to all of this, right? So now, what we are going to do is that intro part is over, right? We are going to get into some serious stuff, right? So we are going to talk about typography using typography as a form, right? So the first step that you need to do in here is to study a typeface, right? When you start to consider a typography as, if you want to take it as an aesthetic element, you have to spend an amount of time studying that typeface. What is good about it? What are the features of that typeface, right? So that's very, very important. So for example, I'm just going to go to this poster that you have seen already, right? This is the poster for this event. I think all of you have seen this.
Yes.
On
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
So if you look at this, there are a lot of elements which are happening. I think I just explained it to one of my classes yesterday, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you look at this, you can see I'm actually trying to promote the event, but there is a lot of play which is happening with typography here itself. So you can see there is a whole element of typography that I am just completely ignoring it as a typography and I'm using it as a form, right? Because you cannot read it, you cannot understand what I'm trying to write with this here, right? It is a part of this text, right? It is basically saying RAP and the half of heads in here, but I scaled it up and I really like the form that it created when I scaled it up and I used it like that. So basically, when you look at it, there are, one of the things that I really liked about this particular form is that it reminded me of like street lamps, right? This particular art sort of reminded me of street lamps. And if you actually look at the older street lamps, it had characters etched on the side of it using metal itself like this. Have you seen lamp posts like this? Right? It will be usually green in color, and then you will have the metallic, fixture of a typography which actually goes right into the lamp post. So I want to create that, and I thought that this is something which is actually that works. Like I want to recreate that effect. And another thing that I've tried to do is that I created some a pairing here. So see, if you look at all the typographic elements which are used in here, everything is very geometrical, right? The text, this particular shape, and everything is very geometrical.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So, but I'm sort of pairing it. I'm sort of like, pairing it up with a very very organic form in here. So if you look at these circles, these blobs that I'm using, that is very, very organic. These lines are organic, right? This just scribbles there. That is something that I'm using. Another thing that I'm doing is that in the way that I am arranging the pages, Mentor Maheshwari is the first thing that I want people to see. They will be looking at these two things, right? Workshop and the workshop date. You can see that these are similar information and these are similar information.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
This is a very similar, these two information will go together. That's the reason, even though it is actually in two different places, you are connecting it because of the positioning of it. But these two information that you are connecting it because it is in different, different from, or maybe far away from each other, but it uses the same orientation.
Yes, sir.
Workshop is it. It is actually there. Another thing I want to tell you, I've already told most of these people, I did the whole poster in a phone. Right, the whole poster was done using PixArt app. Right, everything is created from scratch, including those lines and everything. I just scribbled on this, but was done using a phone. Right, so again, it doesn't matter what tool you're using for any of this, right? You can actually do it whenever you want, wherever you want, with whatever device that you have in your hand. You can keep practicing on it and you can create some difference in your typefaces, right? So we are going to get into some exercises and I'm going to just show you a list of them, right? And then how this can be a very, very effective thought to bring it into your design. So maybe you don't have to exactly take it into a design, but I'm saying like, these are some simple tips that you can create when you are doing your next design project. So I'm going to go to Photoshop and I will do the first thing in Photoshop. So I'm going to create a new document. Yeah, I think 1500 into 1500 is good enough. 72 is okay. And click create. So we have a document like this here and we're going to play with something, right? So the first thing that I want to do is, as I was saying earlier, let's type something. Okay, this is what we have, right? So I'm going to scale it up. Perhaps this is the first step that you should do, right? Take a typeface, type something randomly, scale it up. Now, another way that, another thing that you should do when you're working with typefaces is that you can just go here, just make a duplicate of it. Whenever you're working on it, go to, edit, sorry, image.
Sir, are you doing it in different screens?
Yeah.
I can't see the thing which you're typing.
Oh, okay. So I think I was sharing the whole screen.
It was shared. It was visible.
It was visible. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah, Salish, what you can do is you can rejoin. It worked for me. The same was happening for me.
Okay. For all of you, you're able to see the Photoshop screen, right?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes.
Okay. You should actually say that like that, right? You can't see for me and all that. Okay, cool. So we are here. So one of the easiest thing that you can do here, right? So to understand, so study while you're studying typography is that you can go to edit, transform, and flip horizontal. So right now you are seeing your typeface like this, right? You're invade, and this is something that a lot of type designers do it, right? Typography artists and all those things. So why they are doing it like this, so you're not reading the content anymore, right? You're just looking at the shape of it, right? If you are seeing it like this, you will be reading type over and over again in your mind, right? But when you see the same thing inverted, it is impossible for you to read. So you will be forced to focus on the form of it, right? How, the Y is looking, is it beautiful, individually when you're looking at all these things, you will be able to appreciate the beauty of that particular shape, right? Is it perfectly balanced? So you can see that there is, a very geometrical end to this, but here it is actually being very organic and curved, right? So it looks almost like a teardrop, right? Or something dripping out of a V, right? So instead of a Y, it also makes you feel like it's somebody painted a V and an ink is actually dripping out, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting thought. Like this is basically a Y, but when we flipped it like that, it actually looks like a V with some ink dripping out. So this is called studying a typeface, right? You're taking everything and you're trying to understand, how these typefaces work. So the first tip is that scale up the typeface, flip it, try to understand its form. Because if you're not flipping it, you will only see Y, right? When you flip it, you are going to start to see, and this is something in the beginning stage, right? You don't have to do it once after you're familiar with that process. You don't have to flip it every time. But when you're starting to do this exercise, I would recommend you to flip it and study the typeface and understand, so this is something that I can use, when I'm writing something with a V and I want to create an effect of maybe blood actually coming out of it, right? So something like that. You are going to get an idea immediately with that, and you can save it, that particular idea in your mood board. So this is how you study the typefaces. Now, one really interesting thing that you should start doing is that instead of a readability, so forget about your readability and stuff like that, and start playing around with portions of typefaces, right? So this is a very interesting exercise. So I will just write it down somewhere so that cutting a typeface, right? This is the first exercise that you should be doing. Okay, let's put it right there. So what do you mean by cutting a typeface? So this is the entirety of the entire typeface. You can see which is written type and all that. One of your first exercises that when you're playing with typography should be seeing that, if I'm not using the whole thing, will that be visible, right? Will people understand this particular thing? So for instance, a simple form would be just keep it somewhere here, right? Where the whole text is not visible, right? Is it working? Just try it out, right? So if my typeface, if I'm not showing the whole thing, will it work? Or will it make a very interesting, intriguing, complicated composition, right? It's a very, very interesting exercise, and most of the time it actually works. You might have seen works like this, right? Where the typeface itself bleeds out of the scene.
Yes, sir.
right? So the style is called open composition, right? Because if everything comes inside the composition frame, it is called a closed composition. If anything leaves out of the frame, it's called an open composition. We are not defining what happens outside the frame, but definitely there is something which is happening outside the frame. So if you do it like that, just think of it. Is it working, right? Is it some way it is working or not as a form? So people are not going to try and read it. They will understand it as a form. So maybe something like, I'm going to take a duplicate of it and I'm going to just put it right here. Okay. And let's imagine we have some body text also to go with it. Right, so I'll just go down. Okay. Can you see that when we did it, we are getting a perfect placeholder to place the text?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So this is something, when we are playing with it, we are going to realize that that's a perfect position. We can actually put it here. So it actually looks like this particular portion is holding the text. Maybe you can try a different arrangement here, and you're going to say that, okay, this comes in like this. Right. So maybe something like this. Right. A pretty interesting composition. A pretty dramatic composition, which normally we wouldn't do, right?
Yes, sir.
Normally we will not dare do something like this because we will be too afraid that people will be able to read it and all that. But let's think about this. If you are doing it, and maybe the heading of this is going to be there, like you are going to write about typography in this page, and that is something that you're already defining right here. So now you can do this, right? It doesn't matter. Right. You're already saying that, okay, when we talk about typography, we type the text and all that, and this is sort of bleeding in there. We will never think of it in a normal way because we never used to. I mean, that was not in our thought process that typography can be used as a visual form. So we will never try anything like this. We will never be able to create a composition like this. And this is something like, usually David Carson will do something like that. You might have seen it.
Yeah.
He will not have these discipline also. He will completely ruin that as well. But that, I mean, even though this is something that we can start with, right? We are not David Carson. So we can actually maybe do with this and then get away with that. And people will actually understand and appreciate the thought process here, right? So let's save this as the first exercise. So cutting the typeface, I'll show you another example of cutting the typeface, right? So let's go to desktop and save it as a JPEG. Okay. Now let's forget about all of this and we'll try something else. Okay, this, and let's play around with the typeface. Perhaps this. I'm going to scale it up a little bigger. I'm just showing you another example of cutting the typeface, right? So maybe let's do that. So imagine if this is our scenario, we have a typeface like this, right? And we are writing something like this. We were previously cutting it by moving it out of our frame. But we don't always have to do that. We can cut the typeface when it is still inside the composition also. So for instance, I'm going to take a shape, maybe fill it with white. And let's change the stroke. I'm going to just bring that right here. Let's duplicate it. So again, this is not something that we would usually dare doing, right?
Yeah.
But it creates a pretty interesting effect. right? If this is a centerpiece of a design, or we are actually putting it somewhere here, and then we are writing the rest of the text content for it, right? So let's say I'm going to scale it up. So this is where we actually cut the typeface inside of the composition itself, right? It works, right? So we are going to say that again, and the same maybe. Right. It's a very interesting composition.
So in these cases, the actual text you wrote does not matter.
No, it needs to be connected with whatever
Yeah,
we
like
are
somewhat
designing. But I'm just,
related, but it does not.
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have, because we are not actually looking at the readability of the typeface at all. Right. This is something which is, on some level it is connected to the content, but it is not the priority. The readability of that is not the priority. We are creating a visual intrigue here. We are creating a drama to the content, right? That's the only thing. This is not, something that we can actually replace as a title or something like that in a design.
Yes, so that's what I was going to
Right. Yeah, that is not possible. That is not possible.
And make it like this.
Make it like this. Yes, we might have some content there, or maybe this could be an inner page of a book, right? We will be actually writing typography randomly, and they don't even care what it is written here and all that. When they are looking at it as a form, it actually looks beautiful.
Yes.
Right. Yes. That is the only thing. It actually looks dramatic. That is the only thing that they are going to look at. So, I will show you a very similar example here. So let's say cutting a typeface. We'll save that as an example. Titled 2. Let's say. Let's imagine we are doing this with text. This is also a very, very popular style, right now, recently. So I'm going to scale it up. Okay, and let's bring it right here. Again, we'll take a shape. We'll just create something like this. Now think of this. Okay. Hope you're getting the idea, right? So
yes, sir.
Here also, the readability doesn't matter, but people will understand that we are actually talking about 2, right? Point number 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, sir.
Yes,
right? So this is how we can cut it in that. So we don't usually do it because we are too afraid that, okay, this might actually ruin the design, or this might ruin the message and all that. But this is the liberty that you need to take, right? You need to take that risk to make, to come out of something which is unique, which actually stands out. That is the whole intention of the workshop, is to actually push you to that level, right? Because in this areas, like especially when you're studying and all that, you can actually do a lot of these kind of experiments, right? You don't have to actually fall into the safe zone, which I am noticing a lot, right? You always try to be in the comfort zone and you do the safest solution, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's something that you always, I mean, like when you're working on an assignment and all that, you always try, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. The design solution will be really good and all that, but it's the safest choice that you will always take. You will not actually take any risk. You don't want to take any risk, thinking that, okay, if I take a risk, it might not work. I might actually, lose the grade or something. But, remember this thing, like, do you remember what was the definition of A+ grade? What was the requirement of A+ grade?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
What was that?
So it was more, it was something
extraordinary, right? I mean, when you go beyond the norms, right? And when you create something which is added into your portfolio or your work, you will be given that. This is where you can, I mean, this is the direction that you can actually take to get into that league, right? So if you stick to a safe zone, right, you are going to have that steady growth. I mean, you might be, let's continuously a B+ student for the rest of the course and all those things. And that is going to be reflecting in your career also. You will be in that safe zone level. But, if you want to grow up from there, right, if you want to go and do something which is crazy and unique, definitely that is going to make you a better designer, right? So, and basically this is, say, let's think about the elements that we basically use to create this particular layout. There is only text. Is there
Yes.
any color?
Yes. No, sir.
There is no color. There is no shape. There is no image. We just used typography. But with typography, we were able to create something which is, something better, right? So you can, right now, I would encourage you to experiment with these kind of stuff so that you can create, some sort of interesting compositions, right? So let's save this also into our example. Okay. Okay. Now that's cutting typefaces, right? That's something that we already know. Now there's another very interesting technique that we can do here, which is combining typefaces, right? Combining glyphs, I would say, not typefaces. So let me just say, so do you know what is a glyph? We just explained it. Do you remember what is a glyph?
Yes,
Right. So a glyph is basically an individual character, right? This is a glyph, right? So I'm going to scale it up again, super big. And let's go with something norm, right? So I'm going to go here, I'm going to take bold, and we have this. So see, combining typefaces is a very interesting, so I will actually change the background in this scenario to black. And so for instance, let's say I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to make it into A, right? So I have an A in here. I'm going to change the color of this to black. Very simple technique, but when you play with this, any words or any number of words, right, you can create some very interesting combinations. So you can see that two typefaces are interacting here, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. It's basically the form of one typeface that you can see. There is only one glyph that you can clearly see right now. But because of the colors and all that, I mean, you can use any technique in here, but we are actually seeing two different glyphs interacting in the same space. It is not two different spaces, it is in the same space. So the positive space here in this design is the L, right? So it is interacting in here. So let's say if we want to actually create or maybe create a logo for LA, Los Angeles, right? So you're going to do something like this. And if I'm going to bring this a little closer, maybe I can create a pretty interesting combination here, right? It's just L. So we are using just the space of L here, but it is also showing an A. Hope you're able to get it, right?
Yes.
So you can,
Yes, sir.
it is not
Yes,
just
sir.
one typeface. You can just go ahead and you can do, anything in here. So this is again one typeface, one space that you're seeing, but you can see S, A, and L.
Right.
Right? A very interesting exercise which you can try out. So this is again a display element, right? So if you pair it with maybe a typography, say, right? I hope you got this idea, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Cool. So let's just next one. Let's save this also. Maybe we don't need this. title 4. Okay. Now let's try something a little more. When you are pairing it with, so far we were discussing only about typefaces, but now we are going to take a look at what if we actually want to pair a typeface with some other medium, right? So we were only talking about typefaces. Let's ignore colors also at this point. We will actually think about images. So what if you want to actually make image also play into this or come into this equation? Now here, it is not just one image. We are not using image as a content. We are just using image to enhance our typography, right? So let's close all of this thing. Okay, I think that typo, yeah. So let's type some content here, right? So I'm going to say, alone in the dark and afraid. Okay, let's see that this is what I want to say, but I don't need to say this in this particular typeface. I'm going to change it. Maybe something thicker. Pretty interesting typeface. Let me see if there is a bold. Okay. Now here is one thing that I want to do, right? So now this is pretty hard to read if I actually make it like this, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
This is very hard to read. That's because it is actually in the white, right? It is actually there. There is a white content in here. So you are not very comfortable reading this particular typeface, right? So we will actually do a slight bit of variation here. Instead of this white in the background, I'm going to bring in an image. So I have this image right here. I'm going to bring it into our composition. So we have this image here. I'm going to just scale it up, put it maybe right here. Okay. And I'm going to use a clipping mask. You know what is a clipping mask, right?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the clipping mask is where you can actually, press Alt on your keyboard and click on this middle portion between these layers. This image will be clipped into the layer below it, right? So if I do this, it's going to come like this, right? Now it's much more readable than the previous version, right? Because
Yes.
there is going to be some drama in
Yes.
there, right? You can actually, you are going to look at the image because see, now if I just move this around, let's see, I can actually bring the face right here, right? So can you see the drama that we are creating with that picture in the typography?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
see,
sir.
why this will not work in the normal typography is that there will be separations, right?
Yep.
See,
Yes.
if we were actually increasing the line height for readability, the image will be disrupted. The image will not be flowing in one particular space, right? It will be separated. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
So if I just increase this gap, the image is going to be broken like this.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So now, but we are actually trying to show the image in one particular connection, right? So everything is connected in here. The image actually looks there. And because of that drama in the background, people are going to read what is written there, right? You can try it with any other typography. So once you have done this, if you want to actually try it, like if I can do it with a different typeface, you can play around with that. And maybe another typeface is going to work better than what we did, right? I think this works better than the Helvetica.
Right.
Right. So now this actually makes a pretty interesting start, maybe for a book cover, right? Or maybe a sub page in or maybe even a home screen of a website. Right? There is a code, and then it is actually coming there. Right? Hello. Okay. So if you again pair it with some typography to balance the whole thing. Right? Do you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
some a simple technique, but it works. So the whole trick here is that we actually reduce the line space so that there is no break in between these things. That then only this image will work. I have seen the effect used, in normal typography. I mean, I've seen. I mean, if you go to Pinterest or check on it, you will see a lot of like clipping mask effects where the text is not connected in any sort of way, right? So when the text is not connected, you will never be able to actually connect to the image in any sort of way. But here you can see that that is one image, right? The image is actually flowing without any sort of disruption here. It's in the actual scale, right? So that is the reason it actually makes so we are actually using that to enhance our typography. That particular story we are telling through our typography, right? This is an example of image typography. I hope this is clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right? So try doing this, all these exercises, right? Whatever exercises that we are doing, that is a starting point for you, right? I want you to take it up and then I want you to experiment with other things to come out with solutions. So why I'm actually forcing you for this is that I want to see that diversity in the works that we are creating, right? In the assignments that you are submitting, I want you to come out of the safe zone and experiment with something like this. Only if you feel that, okay, and this is not something that you can do in the last minute also, right? If you are a person who struggles to finish an assignment, maybe the submission due date and then there is a due date on Tuesday, you will start working only on Tuesday morning, then this is not something, you will not have the liberty to do this. You will have to rush to find a safe solution. Well, let's imagine that you're a person who actually pre-plans it and starts working early, right? You can do a lot of experimenting in that and you can come out with some amazing solutions, right? That nobody will be able to replicate this. Even when you're trying it, maybe tomorrow, I will not be able to replicate the same thing. Right? Because we are actually experimenting and we don't know, we are not going with a plan right here. We are actually going there and the initial typography that we had in mind, we changed it.
Yes, sir.
So it is going to be a spontaneous decision and it is going to be completely about improvisations here, right? So you're going to come up with a solution, then you will be happy with it and you will see that okay, this all works together. It is going to add a little more personality to my design. And this is something that only I can do. So when you fill your portfolio with something unique out there and those who see your portfolio, they will immediately recognize that okay, this is something unique that I haven't seen in a while, right? So this is an approach that I don't usually see here with normal design students. So, that is going to benefit you a lot. So try experimenting all these exercises, okay? Now we will go into another task. It's the same thing, but with a different approach. So I'm going to just take this and I'm going to try with the same image thing, but we are going to try something slightly different here, right? So I'm going to just take this thing and we have the moon and I'm going to rasterize the whole thing. And let me just fill. Right. So here again, we are talking about image typography. So let's say we are actually typing something which is related to, an object, right? And if you can actually bring that object into the typography, that's a really, really interesting effect. So for example, moon. This is a very simple example. That's why I chose this. So if you go to Google, let's say, and I'm going to look for moon. So I have several images here. I'll click on one image. Any image is fine. Open that, drag and drop it here. Okay, let's remove the background. This is something that you might have seen, right? A lot.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right, you might have seen it, but it's a very, very interesting technique. Like you're replacing the whole thing. Maybe I will adjust the colors a bit to match the white. It's a very interesting and very easy to achieve technique. Any object that you're working with, especially this, and if I just add a little bit of shadows also, it might actually work even better. So let's say I'm going to select this. I'm going to create a layer right on top of this. Let's do it. What's happening? Okay, we have the moon layer and I have an empty layer on top of it. So what basically I want to do is that I want to add a little bit of shadow here. So let's take this black, maybe reduce the opacity. Right. So you can see the effect that we are achieving here.
Yes, sir.
Right. It is again a very interesting approach. It all comes in image type. I'm just showing you another example of what we did earlier, right? You can play with this. So you don't have to actually stick to one medium. We are combining two different mediums into one, but it is not going to add any sort of, we are not using this moon as a content. We're basically using it to enhance our typography, right? So that people will look at it and they will see something unique here, right? Did you understand this? Very simple exercise this is. Okay? Try to do it on different objects, right? Try to actually incorporate typography into an image, or an image into a typography. There's so many things that you can do here. See, let's think about typing milk and maybe adding milk splashes from the edges, right? Because it's white, it actually works really well, right? So ocean, or maybe greenery. You might have seen a lot of typefaces, type examples like that. So this is also something that I would recommend doing in your design projects. So let's go here, maybe save as a copy. This is, I completely lost the numbers that we were doing here. Does anybody remember this? Okay.
That's a safe bet.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Cool. So now take a look at something. So we are going to talk about using typography or using an image here. This is again image-based typography exercise, but we are going to talk about how to use an image to distort the typeface in here in a certain way, right? So I'm going to take, this is an example that you might have already seen. I'll tell you where you have seen it. So if you come to the public announcement, have you seen the poster where I said that the seats are already over?
Yep.
So did you notice the typography in here?
Yeah.
Right. So the distortion of that typography is driven by this image, right? I didn't manually do it. I did some adjustment there, but it's basically driven by this image, this plastic wrapper image here. That is also one interesting way that you can create that distortion. So let's take a look at how we can do it, right? So there's so many techniques to it. You can use a displacement map and all that, but I'm not going to go into that level of complication right now. So let's turn off this and let's type typography. Okay, we have that. I think this is also fine. This also works there. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to rasterize this layer. The first thing that I want to do is that I wanted to create, an uneven focus in this. So right now, when you look at this, everything is in focus. Everything is very clear. We can see this properly. But the first thing that I did was I took the blur tool in here and I wanted to create an uneven focus. So I would say that the T is out of focus here. Then a portion of the, Y and P is in focus. The whole bunch of this is out of focus, and then a tip of the Y is out of focus. So now I created an uneven focus here, right? So that is already there. Now, what I did was I actually brought in this particular texture. I just found it from Google. I dragged and dropped it on top of it, right? So now what I basically did here was I will scale it up. I'll create a duplicate of this first. Okay, create a duplicate. One duplicate copy, I will bring it below the typography, and one I will keep it right now on the top, right? We'll bring it back again later once the process is done. So what I basically did here is that I wanted to use this data to distort the typography that is down there. So what I did was I selected the plastic wrapper texture. I changed the blending mode of this. So you can see that when you go through the blending mode, you can see it affecting the typography. Can you see?
Yeah.
Right, it is creating, it is affecting, and it is, that image is being used to distort the typography. You see how it is actually defining the distraction of the typography? Yeah. So this actually looks pretty cool here, that is, say, the vivid light setting, right? So that is there. Now, if I bring this back and if I just put it on top here and I change the opacity or something, or maybe change it to screen, change the opacity down a bit, right? Now here is something that, you know, I created with the distortion of this image. Now this image, the secondary image that I'm using is not necessary, but I just wanted to show you how I created that poster itself, right? So, you know, I'm using that plastic thing also here. But if you just want the distortion and if you don't want the plastic wrapper, you can just turn that off. So you're creating a typography which is distorted like this, right? So, and that works really, really well with maybe a really good, you know, a balanced pairing, something like, let's say I'm going to take this up a bit, I'm going to twist it a bit. So we have something like that. And you can still change how it affects. See, if you move that layer, right, you can see the damage getting affected or changing. Right?
Yeah.
So if you sort of, you know, we have already blurred certain things, right? So if you actually move the damage over that blurred area, that will be pretty cool, right? So you just move it like that and you can place it somewhere like this. So this is the effect that you're getting. If you want, you know, the other balancing typography here. So now I'm going to take it and we'll put it on top of the layer so that that is not affected by the distortion. Yeah, have something like that. Right, I hope this is clear. Now, if I need this texture, I can bring it back and will maybe adjust the colors, the levels a bit. Right, so I can do it something like this, maybe. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So again, another way to actually use images in your typography. So this is not, we are not using these images. All the examples that we saw, we were not using images just like an image, right? We were using it to actually enhance the typography. In this case, degrade the typography, right? We wanted to actually reduce the quality of the typography, right? So that's one way that we can do it. There are several other ways. As I was saying, you can use a displacement map. I'm not going to show it because, you know, it's going to take a long time. How many of you know how to use a displacement map? Anybody? Nobody knows. Okay.
No.
All right. So let me just quickly show you that also. Like it's okay. Let me just turn on something here. Okay. So a displacement map is basically something like this. Let's say you are going. I'm going to scale this into 1500 and 1500. Okay. And I'm going to go here. I'm going to save this as a PSD file. Okay. The first option is that we're going to save it as a PSD file. I'm going to call it displaced. This texture, we want to use it as a displacement map. So our first step is to save it as a PSD file and call it display. So we saved it like that. Now we are going to go to, you know, our original project and we are going to turn on our typography and all those things. Maybe we'll start with the base. Yeah, I think this is also fine. Scale it up. Okay. Now we have this in here. If you go to filter, you go to, where was this? Displace, right? There is something called distort. And if you click on displace, it's going to ask you, you know, what is the scale that you want. So 10 is okay. Click on that. and it is going to ask you the displacement map file, right? You choose the displacement PSD that we just uploaded, click open, and can you see?
Huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So quickly the displacement, that particular displacement got affected in here. And now if you turn this thing on back, right on top, maybe screen, something like that. See, it will sort of look like you're actually seeing through that plastic wrapper exactly. Because that is the map that we have used to distort it. Okay. So it's a very, very interesting effect. You can try using that. I mean, that effect can be used for a lot of things. Like if you want to create, text being, looking on a fabric, for example, right? When you're creating a mock-up of a logo that you want to actually stitch it on, a fabric, you can use the same effect, right? The same technique, and it will work perfectly, right? So yeah, so that's the displacement map. These are the techniques where you can use images in your typography, right? So let's go into the next one. So the next technique is, again, something which is related to this. You can actually try and distort, or maybe I would say it is not. Yeah, let's typography. It's something I think you might have seen or even used in certain projects, right? So for example, let's say I have this bunch of text in here, right? This is a text that I have. Now what I'm going to do is, normally, this works perfectly, but if you want to actually make a difference out of it, so I'm going to just rasterize that layer, and I'm going to split the layer into multiple, parts, right? Layer where cut. Maybe. So we have different segments here, right? So I'm pretty sure that you might have seen this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right? So again, it's not about the readability, right? It might not be readable when you're actually doing something like this, but it's not about that. It is all of this technique is to actually make a person look at your design, right? So this is all techniques that you can increase your traction. When you see something like this, which is slightly different from the norm, people are going to look at it and they're going to spend more time figuring out what this actually means, because it is going to pull them into the design, right? So all these techniques are for that. It's not for readability. For example, you might not be able to use it in certain situations where readability is your priority, right? So for example, there is some very important information that you want to share with people. You cannot use this technique, right?
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
but this will work in, maybe, as I was saying again, on a website, right? You are going to explain about this particular topic down here, but this is something, and even though it's actually really big, right? We are able to read this also. Lorem ipsum, lorus et consequator. We are able to see it because it is actually pretty big. So even with a slight distortion, we are able to read it, but it's not completely, free of errors or anything. There is, we are intentionally distorting this text so that we are making some sort of difference there in the typography, right? And it balances really well. So if I change this to something which is, very, very easy to read, right? It works perfectly there, right?
Yes, sir.
See
Yes,
that.
sir.
Okay, so that's it. And now what else should I? Okay, when we talk about glitch also, there is something else that I want to show you. This is something that I think I have shared with a lot of you students, but there are new students also. So I'm just going to delete all the stuff. Let's see. I'll just change the background to white. So I think a couple of months back, we had a design, what was that? Alphabet challenge, right?
Yeah, design prompts.
I don't know how many,
Yes, sir.
a design prompts. So we were actually doing that with, we were taking every alphabet once a day. So we will take A and we will actually pair it with broken, right? So the goal on that day was to actually create A, which also says broken, right? So there were a lot of experiments, and it was really, really good technique to actually improve your form storming skill. That was a major intention of conducting that. I think, Mohit, we should actually do this again because we have a lot of new people, right?
Yeah,
So maybe 1 month we can you can plan it and you can actually do this again. So visualizing, and this will actually really help in this particular process, right? So
cool.
so I'm going to take this O. I'm just going to convert that into. This is something that I did for O, where the prompt was twist, right? So what I did was I wanted to literally twist the O. So I selected the O. I went to the warp tool and I sort of brought this like this, right? So it gave that feeling that the O is sort of like twisting. It was glued onto a wall or something, and it slowly actually is peeling out, right? That is the feeling that I wanted to give. But to give that feeling or to make that particular effect perfect, we wanted to add a lot of more effects into it. So for instance, so what I wanted to do here is that I wanted to create a shadow. So for this O, I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a drop shadow. So you can see that there is a shadow right here, right? Are you able to notice this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
There is a shadow right here. Now, one thing that I've done here is that to show that this is actually something which actually fall down, I had to manually draw a shadow here. So what I did was, roughly, I'll show you what I did. I'm not going to be very perfect with it. See, something like this. And then I just went and I blurred the whole thing. It's not perfect, but I'm just to show give you the idea, right? So can you see right now that it's more realistic, right? It was actually stuck into the wall and this started falling, and you can see the shadow here.
Yeah.
Right. So it's again a very, very simple technique, but you can create some sort of variants out of it. You can do a lot of fun stuff with this. So again, glitch typography. Where was the glitch typography? So why is it glitch? Is that we are actually intentionally we are making errors to the typography, right? We are twisting or distorting it. We are actually cutting it and spreading it and all those things. So all those distortions are really, really errors. So that is why it is called glitch typography. Yeah. So this is something that we have. Okay. Now, while we were talking about this, I just wanted to show you that challenge that we did. Which month was this, Mohit?
It was before September.
Yeah, I think it is here. It is here. It is here. So I think September, right? Okay. So you can see it like every day we had a prompt, right? A design prompt is fear. So basically you can see that the Y is actually here, but the shadow that it creates is of a monster hand, right? So design prompt was pain and the text was X. So I sort of created a bone. Now, this is completely created with actual bone X-ray parts, right? So I placed it around like which actually resembles a bone. And it's broken, so there is pain, right? So we can see a lot of examples like this is the broken thing that I was talking about. Again, displacement map, the one that we have done. 3D typography is something that we will talk about in a bit. That's what's there. This is an example of what I showed you earlier, right? It actually goes out of the frame. It's L, right? But the prompt is stretched. So it is stretching out. We are only seeing one portion of that L, but we are still able to understand it's an L, right?
Yeah.
Right. So this is a very interesting task that if you do it, it is going to see distorted typography here again. The prompt was chaos, right? It's an H, but we distorted it. So many things that you can. This is the.
That's the C
it's not an O.
yeah.
We actually work with C, right? So the same thing that I just showed you right now, right? The thing was twist, so it actually is twisting down and all those things. Yeah, this was an interesting task. Like, the prompt was movement, and the thing was B, so broken A, right? So very, very interesting exercise. We'll definitely bring it back to show you more. So now I want to show, tell you some other techniques that, when it comes to typography that you will be using. So one technique that I've used it on my website, and it's a very, very, very simple, silly technique, right? So I'm going to delete these first off. This is by pairing, your organic illustrations into typography, right? So whatever you can do out of a computer, if you're doing it on a paper or you're doing it on an iPad, there is always an interesting way that you can pair them. Just like what we did with images and typography, you can always do that as well. So I'm going to show you that. So yeah, so let's say I have this. So this is something that I've just, again, using PicsArt, I just created like some scribbles here, right? I just did it like that. Now, so you know that this is the positive space in here, right? Positive space is the that scribble that you have in the middle, right? So now think of it like this. If you are going to break that positive space with a text, right? So let's say typography. Right? And I'm going to just make it a little thicker. That typography is not going to work in here. Right? So this sort of feels like the typography is the negative space here, right? We don't actually feel that this is, a positive space because of the way that it's actually written, right? So maybe we can actually try something a little more thicker, perhaps. Right? This feels to us like a positive space, negative space, because this is something that we already established that the white is basically the positive space in here, and the black, anywhere that you see black, is going to be the negative space. So this is an interesting idea to create that sort of using a negative space. It's a fake thing. We are not using negative space, but to create that effect. I think you might have seen this in my website. I don't know how many of you have seen the website. Right. Yes. So I've used that technique to write Maheshwari here. Right. I don't have much content on my website. It's very, very, simple text-based approach. But there is one element which actually makes a unique treatment there. I'm not writing Maheshwari just like the normal stuff. I just wrote it like that, right? So there is some order in a lot of chaos, right?
So have you used a shadow there?
Yeah.
Have you used a shadow under the text?
No, there is no shadow. Nothing is there.
Okay.
What I've done is that I just extended the sort of like this thing to make it a little more real. What I've done is, let's take this. I'm just inverting that just for you to see this better. So what I basically did in there is that to make it a little more realistic, I just extended these, sketches, right, manually. So I just did like, the pen. I reduce the size like this, and I just made sure that it's sort of extending like this, so maybe 2 or 3, and a couple of things are just coming like that on top of the typeface. I think the opacity is not full. See this. I'm just looking at this line, right, and I just sort of say that the line is actually going like that. or maybe it goes like this, right?
Yes, sir.
So something like this. So it actually makes it feel like the text is sort of like inside that, area, something like that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So that's one way that you can use. Okay, let's go back. I would say organic. This is not organic typography exactly, but I'm just giving a name right now. We are combining organic elements with typography. So save us and now another thing that I've done in the same thing is that this is something that I just scribbled on the phone, right? I just have this in my phone. Now, that's also a very interesting concept that you can actually use in a design to make it stand out. So for example, let's say we will start here with a black background. And I'm going to bring this right here. So we have this right now. Now, one very interesting thing that I can do when I'm typing typefaces like this digitally, organically, I can take this and convert it into separate shapes, right? So I can maybe layer cut this. So this is going to be a separate shape, right? All of this, I can basically do that for all the shapes out there. So, which actually makes my, so I'm going to just do that. Layer cut. So let's say only this we will actually take into consideration right now. So something that I like doing is that I will actually use it as a background, element, like something like this. So when I'm writing typography, let's say we have a bunch of typography that we have to use, and just bring it out there. What I will try doing is that I will take this and I might actually change the blending mode of the text. So it could be light and or screen. And that is going to play as an element in my background. I will not even think about the visibility of it or what is it readable or anything like that. I'm just going to use it as a background element. But I would have written like the title of that article here. Do you get it? Right. So maybe the title of the article, it could be May or something like that. I would have used it in the background, but that's a secondary decision. That people are actually reading it, they don't have to actually worry about that. What is written on the background and all that is just going to increase the drama of the design, right? So let's go here, bring that in here. So I have a design composition and I'm just using this as the background. So that's the only thing which is out there. Right. So maybe the actual title of the content is going to be written like this. So this is the content and I have that. What did I do? Okay. Okay. I already have this, right? I already have my title in the design, but I'm just using the rest of it to just create that visual drama here. Right. Still typography. This is still typography. It's not a design element. Do you understand the point here?
Yes.
Everything is typography as a design element, right? We were actually talking about typography as a design element for all these exercises. But here also, this is not a design element, right? This is a typography. This is something that we wrote on maybe a piece of paper or something like that. And I'm bringing it here, right?
Yes.
This is one way that you can actually use it in the design. It is a background element. It actually has a little bit of character there, right? If you look closely.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
This is not something that you can easily digitally replicate, right? I mean, it's digitally done, but again, I'm saying this is not very easy to actually bring it into a design, right? So this is a very interesting way that you can create that, right? And you can use this maybe as a background for your titles. So something that I would use like that. right? So a very interesting approach. This actually works most of the time when you are actually struggling to find, where should I start, or what should I actually bring in as my content and things like that, or what should I use to differentiate the background, and my background looks too plain, things like that. Then this is a very interesting idea that I usually use in a lot of my designs. You can see organic elements actually coming in, just like supporting actors, right? So it's a very interesting technique, and it can create a pretty good impact, right? I hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So two different techniques. One is this, and one is this. Just when we are playing with organic typography here. Let me just save this as well. Now, this technique is not called organic typography, right? I'm just writing it for you to understand the difference between the exercises. What was the number? 12 could be safe. Yeah. All right. So now we are going to try something a little different, right? So we're going to talk about 3D typography here. This is also something that, has a lot of potential that we don't actually feel very comfortable playing with it, right? You already know 3D typography. I think most of you know it, right? That you can create a 3D typography from literally anything, like any software that you have, right? You have Photoshop, you have Illustrator, you can create 3D typography, but we don't feel very comfortable using 3D typography because we know that, if we are not doing it right, it can ruin the whole design also. But there are certain tips or things that you can actually do, or maybe I will actually show you a workflow that I use, which you can actually use it to create some really cool 3D effects from your typeface, right? So I'm going to use a 3D application here. If you are not familiar with 3D applications yet, it is completely okay. You can use any 3D application for that matter for this. Or when you learn 3D software at that time, you will understand this a little more clearly. I just want to show you that technique as well, okay? So what are the 3D applications out there, that you know of?
Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D.
Okay, cool. So I think you have worked on this as well, right? A couple of you. All right. So we're going to use a tool called Cinema 4D for this. But before that, I'm going to go into AI, and I've created a document like this, right? So basically, can you tell me what style is this? What style of design is this?
Geometrical.
Not exactly.
Blocks.
No,
Java.
Boas, right? Yes. So I have made this with some basic shapes and all that. I just made it like that. Now, I've expanded this also so that everything is, not a stroke anymore. It has the data also. So once we have done this in Illustrator, you can use any tool for doing that. But I just did this in Illustrator. So we have this right now, and this is a typography treatment that I want to actually create it on a design, right? This is something that I want. So the 3D features in After Effects or Photoshop is okay, but it's not completely 3D, right? You cannot actually depend on this. You cannot actually play around with lighting and stuff like that, which plays a major role in your design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this so that we can actually import this in Cinema 4D or any 3D application, and we can do the rest of the work there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, all of this, converted this to a shape, and I'm going to go here and we are going to save this on your computer as an AI file. So we'll call it Boas, right? And click on AI. Now, one thing when you're doing this that you need to focus is on that is if you actually export it on the latest versions of 2020 or any of the latest versions, the file is going to be unnecessarily complicated, right? So then a 3D application will not find it comfortable to read that from an advanced format, right? So we need to actually do this. Is a very, very simple tip that whenever you're doing it to take it onto another tool, try to simplify it as much as possible, right? If there is complicated data in it, it might not be able to read it. So what I do always is that I go to Illustrator 8, right? So I will always, if I want to actually take it into a different tool, I will save it to Illustrator 8 and click OK. Now it will say that a lot of features are not available and all those things. What is okay? We saved it and we have the boas.ai file right here, right? And now we are going to go to Cinema 4D and we are right here in Cinema 4D. All we have to do is drag and drop this into our scene, right? It's going to ask you what should be the scale of it. So if you can set to 1, that is okay. I mean, it will scale in the same size, right? So it will actually import in the same size that you have created in Illustrator. If you want to actually make it twice the size of what you created in Illustrator, you can just put 2 in here, right? So that is completely your preference. And then you click OK, and you can see the shape is right now in in Cinema 4D. Okay. Are you following me so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So don't worry about how the 3D software is going to work, right? I'm just going to show you this workflow that I use a lot. So what I'm going to do is I can see that the size of this is very small. Even though we actually doubled it, it is very small because my document in AI was very, very small. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to scale this first so that you can see this a little more clearly. Okay, I think this is fine. Okay. Another thing that I want to do here is I want to rotate it and I want to make it flat on the ground. So I'm going to just go to rotate and I'm going to click on 90 degrees. So you can see that it is now sitting on the floor, right? So now when you see this object in here in this scene right now, you can see that there is nothing there except the same shape that you created. It's not 3D yet, right? It's not becoming 3D yet. So what I want to do is that you can see when you open the file called Boas, if you click it open, you can see all the paths that we have created, right? In this, all these are different paths, right? So I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to merge it all together. So the first thing, I mean, don't worry about these tools and stuff, right? So I'm going to merge it to one object and I'm going to take it out of this group. I don't need the group here. I'm going to call it shape. I just renamed it. Now what I want to do is that I want to actually add some depth into it. So I'm going to select this and go to the extrude tool. And you can see that I created an extrusion here, a depth. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. So now what you can do here is that if you go to the extrude options here, you have like any other tool which is out there are so many options right here. So if you go to object, I can basically, increase the offset. I can go to caps. I can maybe increase the size of the bevel. Can you see that the edges, if you look closer,
Yes, sir.
right? I'm creating a roundness in there, right? So that is there. That's something that I want right now. Okay. So you can do a lot of experiments in here, right? You can, extend this way. You can change the bevel, style. There's all these things are already there in, Illustrator and stuff like that, but it's a slightly more advanced 3D application. So that is the reason we are using a 3D app here. So let's say we have some depth in here right now. Now we are going to create, let's take how this actually looks in the end, right? So I'm going to click here and you can see that this is how it looks, right? So it doesn't look good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It looks very flat right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we are going to do some adjustments here. This has to do with 3D lighting, but don't worry about where the buttons are, what I'm doing and all that right now. I'm just going to walk you through the process of creating a 3D typography, right? So we have already done this right now. Now the second thing that I have to do is that I need to add some colors. But before that, I need a ground that this is sitting. So right now it's basically floating in the air, right?
Yep.
So I want to create a floor. I'm going to click on this floor button right now, and immediately there is a floor on the ground. Right? It looks like this. It's okay. Now I'm going to create some colors that I can add into it. So let's start with something very basic. I'm going to go here. I will change the color to maybe blue or light blue thing. Okay, this is fine. I'm going to drag and drop it into the object. So this is created. Now I need a different color to the floor as well. So I'll create a different material for the floor. Maybe something which is very lighter. I'm going to add it right there. So we have this. Now if you render it, there is color and everything, but it still doesn't look 3D, right? So what is missing here?
Lights.
Lighting.
Maybe lighting, shadows, right? All those things are actually missing here to make it look really 3D. So we need to add some light. I'm going to go, the first step that I always do when I'm working on 3D is that I would add something like an ambient light, right? So to add an ambient light, you create any light that you want in a scene. So now you have a light, you created a light around that, and it's actually underneath. That's the reason you're not able to see it. I'm just lifting it up. So you can start to see this, and when you move it around, you know where the light is coming from, right? So I have this right now, but I'm not going to use this light to light this particular element, right? I'm going to go to the modifier. I'm going to convert this into an ambient illumination. So basically what ambient illumination does is that, imagine the sun, right? The sun is the major source of this, right? So I'm going to convert this as, as a sun, for example. So I'm going to click on ambient illumination. And can you see that every data is gone now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
So
sir.
render it right now. Nothing is visible, basically. That's because we just converted into a sun, but we didn't define any shadows, right? We didn't say that this will have shadows or anything like that. So that's something that we have to set it up. I need to say that, okay, this is, a naturally lit sign, a scene. So it needs to have a little bit of ambient occlusion. Do you know what is ambient occlusion?
No, sir.
So ambient occlusion is an effect of objects where objects are actually sitting, let's say, any object. I mean, I'm talking about real objects, right? So imagine anything which is sitting on ground, right? So can you see the shadow of this object is actually affecting that object itself?
Yep.
Right. It's not casting shadow. It's not only casting the shadow down to the floor, but it is actually affecting, it is bouncing back inside the object itself, right? And that is what makes it real, right? So you can say the inner shadows, right? The inner shadows that an object is going to have, right? So the shadow which bounces back to the same object is called ambient occlusion. So we have to say that in a real scenario that is there. So I'm going to turn it on. Another thing that I want to say is that because it's a sunlight, I want it to have global illumination. Now, do you know what is a property called global illumination in the real world?
Not
No,
sure.
sir.
So every object in the world has the power to illuminate another object. That is called global illumination. So for example, if you are keeping an iPhone, right? No, that's a very, very simple example. Let's say you're keeping a white cup, right? White cup, and you're pouring black coffee in it, and you're keeping it there. The black is more visible, and it will sort of take the light from the white ceramic, right?
Yeah.
So the white ceramic itself is illuminating the next object. That cup is illuminated. It's not the sunlight. It is actually bouncing back. So when the sunlight actually hits an object, it bounces back and illuminates other objects also in the real world.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is called global illumination, right? So you're going to turn that on and then close it. And let's render it right now and see how the result is going to be. It's going to take some time because it is going to calculate all those things that we said. Now, can you see all the effects there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? The inner shadows, the other objects actually lighting up the other objects, and everything is actually coming into play right now, right? So this is some basic setup that I do whenever I'm working with 3D, right? Especially typography and all those things. But I'm not done with it. I want to make a little more effects in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to lights and I'm going to create an area light, right? So I have this area light right now. You can see the effect of it here. I'm just going to turn this to one side, and I want the light to emit to only one side. So I'm going to take and say that emit only in one direction. So the light is coming only in one direction right now, just this direction. It is not lighting the other part. So I'm going to move it here and turn the light like this. So imagine this like, a studio light that you're setting up in your studio to light this whole thing, right? So I have the area light coming from here. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to say that I need some shadows, right? For this particular light, I need to turn on some shadows. I'm going to say that the shadow by default is none. I'm going to click this and I'm going to say that I need area shadows here for this object. Now, another thing that I want to do is that I will go to details, and this is also something that I do always. Like there is something called fall off. Do you know what is fall off of a light?
No, sir.
So an object which is closer to the light will get more illumination, and an object which is far from the light will get less illumination, right? That property is called fall off. When you create a digital light, it will not have any fall off. Every object in the scene is evenly lit, right? That is the principle. That is the problem with the digital lighting. So if I turn on the fall off and I say that, it should be physically accurate, you can see this effect. Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Did you notice the difference? So it was none, right? It was evenly lighting everywhere, but I actually turned it to physically accurate. So which means that if there is a physical light really here, this is how it will affect the 3D, the objects, right? So I created a layer, fall off like that. And if you render it right now, it is going to be much more physically accurate. The 3D is going to be much more better than what we do normally, right? Or in any other tool like, Photoshop or Illustrator and all that, it is going to be much more perfect in here. Let's take a look at the final output. So definitely this is going to take a lot of time. That is the only problem. So you're just working with one image, it is okay. But when you have to actually work on an animation sequence, this is going to take a lot of time. So you have to reserve that. Now, can you see the difference here in lighting?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Right. It looks much better, right? So there is a real light actually falling here, it's hitting here, and it's coming here. So it all started from a simple spline in Illustrator, but we were actually able to make it look like a realistic physical object in 3D, right? And this is something that you can use in your design. You just export it as an image, bring it somewhere, and you can use it as a design element, right? So if there is any angle that you can actually work with, you can, go here, you can change it to a straight angle. So if you put it like this, you can render it out and you can actually put it on a design, right? So that is the reason I actually reserved this for the last, because this is a slightly advanced effect. It requires a certain level of knowledge in 3D, but that is not rocket science. You can quickly learn this. Whatever I showed you, it is pretty easy. There is Blender out there. There's a pretty cool tool that if you don't want to actually install any of the stuff, you can actually go to Vectory. Have you heard about Vectory?
No, sir.
So just go to this tool called Vectory and accept all cookies, start creating for free, and you log in with, right? So you have this right now. You will not be able to directly import, an AI file, but if you go to AI, and let's say that you're selecting the whole thing, go to File, Export Selection, and you want to export it as an SVG object right there. So this particular object, you're exporting it as an SVG. And I think it is exported to SVG right there in our desktop, right? So what you can do here is, you can go here, go to Import, and take the SVG file that we just created. Sorry. Drag and drop it. And you have it here, okay? Now, it's a free tool, right? It's completely free. So if you just go here and it's here, and you increase the extrusion size here. Okay, now you can see that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now if you go to maybe materials, I don't know where the whole stuff is, but it's pretty easy to figure out, right? So and if you go to the shaded option, you can see that. No, I'll figure it out anyway. I will do a tutorial on this, right? So what I will do is that I will share all the exercise files and everything. You should go through it, and also keep in mind that this is a time that you can actually do experiment with a lot of design choices that you have, right? Come out of your safe zone. One of the reasons that I wanted to actually do this tutorial was I was actually getting bored with the kind of redundancy that you're actually falling into, right? And I don't want that. You want to actually go out of it and create something which, stands out as a design and has something unique to offer to the viewer, right? We spoke about the aesthetic pleasure, right? Do you remember that term?
Yes.
Right. We spoke about aesthetic pleasure. So aesthetic pleasure is something like when we listen to or music. I was saying that example, right? Why do you listen to music? And when I was asking this question, a lot of you said that, okay, when we are stressed, you will listen to music. When you are actually traveling, you will listen to music. But that's the situations you will listen to music. But why? What are you getting from listening to music is something that you couldn't articulate, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me now, but those students who were not in that conversation, and can you tell me like why are you listening to music?
I mean, it creates an environment.
Sir, one reason might be it's pleasing to the eye. I mean the ears.
Okay, yeah, to an extent, it is pleasing. It's actually giving you some sort of pleasure, right? That is the reason we are listening to it. So when you are stressed, you listen to music so that you know that you're going to get some sort of pleasure, and that pleasure will sort of get rid of your stress and all those things. That is called aesthetic pleasure. Every single artwork out there, every single things that you do, even eating food, right? I told you about that example as well. You are actually fond of food because of the aesthetic pleasure that it offers. It's not because of the energy or anything, right? You like the feeling of eating food. You like the taste, right, of it. That is called aesthetic pleasure that you're getting from the food, right? You're eating it. Otherwise, you will just maybe, imagine your meal actually came in tablet format. Will you actually be happy with it?
Nope.
No, right? That is just one portion of it. I mean, you have to survive, and none of us here are eating to survive, right? We eat certain things because we actually love the taste of it, right? The same thing is applicable to everything, music or anything that you do in our life. And that is there in graphic design as well, right? And most of the time we actually forget it. We actually go into a redundant thing, safe thing, like saying that, okay, it's readable, it is actually functional, so the website is good, right? Not just us, I'm not saying that. Majority of designers right now will fall into that thing. They don't offer any aesthetic pleasure, right? When you look at this, you won't go like, wow, that's an amazing design. You'll say that, okay, yeah, this is a design. That's it, right? It's a website design. Yeah, it's okay. We will not go look at a norm design and we'll say that, okay, this is an amazing design, right? It actually works. It does the job, but it doesn't actually offer any pressure to the audience. They will not even check it back. But there are certain designs that we will look for it only because we actually love it, right? If you go to just Pinterest, and I was saying this example there, right? If you, right? Every kind of design that we see here that actually attracts you offers you some sort of pleasure, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Right. When you look at it. So let's say these are
Right,
the
sir.
experiments that we were actually trying right now, right? When you look at it, there are like normal designs, regular designs, which doesn't offer you anything, right? We might not be seeing a lot of that right now, but see, an example that actually intrigues you, that actually gives you something for your brain to think, or maybe see, this is something that we were trying. I was showing this, right? The chaotic design.
Yep.
Typography is just a visual element here, right? It is, nobody is bothered about whether you can read it or not, right? But
Right.
think of the impact it is actually creating, right? Cutting typography, right? So all these examples that we were talking about, you can actually find it here. And that is how you can actually create a difference in design, right? Otherwise, it is going to fall into the same template-driven stuff. Every design is going to look the same and all that. But you have to somehow create that personality, using typography in a dimension, right? So
Yes.
I hope you understood the intention of this workshop, right? And it gave you some direction to think. And I want you to actually start using this and include those in your designs, right? That is the only way that you can go to the next level of things, right? Any assignment that you're getting, think of something unique, right? You do the whole thing. I mean, you make it functional and everything. At the last stage, think of this, that what can I add here that nobody else will be able to do, right? What can I add as my own signature into this design, right? Always keep that in mind. Do this form storming exercise. Start with the examples that I've just shared right now, and you just go, and you can sit there and you can, it is like playing a game, right? I can actually do experiments for like, an entire night, right? I can keep doing different variations and all that. And I enjoy doing that, right? So maybe you will have to fall into that, and you will also enjoy the whole process, right? See, creating movement with typography. I think I was actually explaining this in the class yesterday, right? How do you actually create movement in a static typography, right? By just twisting, right, and just positioning it, we feel that this is actually falling down, right? So a lot of interesting things that you can do, so play around with it and come out with, a unique solution, right? Don't fall into your safe zones.